will say this, that you have a number of people out there. Shout out to Big Dash Nose. Shout out to Fisk Unit. Shout out to the Entertainer, Bad Dog Sports, Chad Sports, all my New York Giant guys out there. Cop Pizzle, my man Chuck Knox. We want to see the Giants win. We all have that in common. But let's bring it down a notch when it comes to talking about paying out money to a Matthew Stafford who is 37 years old. And we just saw what happened across the hallway with Rodgers. Why in the fuck do you think that Stafford's going to come in and be a savior? A guy who's playing out on the West Coast, a guy who has played most of his games in an indoor stadium. Let's not forget about what we got going on right now on the East Coast. Snow and rain. And I have to say that Daniels got lucky that the same bad luck of rain and mud and all that hit RG3 when he was the starting quarterback. The NFC East caught up with RG3 at the end of that first year that he was a rookie starter in Washington. He looked fantastic. And you can go back and you can go on YouTube and you can dial up these games and you can see most of the game. Some of them have been put up there in their entirety. And you see a shift in what he was capable of doing in terms of his movement once the weather changed. That's the same thing. Rodgers played in Green Bay, sure, but Rodgers is busted up. I mean, the guy walks out on the field and no one even touches him. And he turns around and the guy is out for the whole year, his first year. Something like that you can see happening to us trying to put out money to win now philosophy. Let's forget about all that. You need to build from the ground up, and make that happen that way. If you don't build from the ground up, we're in trouble because this piecemeal, let's try to fix it with this guy and that guy. In the last month and a half, almost 2 months, I've been seeing, first one guy did the old AI picture where they had Rodgers in a Giants uniform. So he's just supposed to walk across the hallway and save us when he couldn't save the Jets or himself or his big mouth. I think that he's doing a little too much, and you might need to be focused on your retirement. And if anybody pays Rodgers to be on their squad, it has to be in a secondary role. It can't be as a starter, And he's got a lot of good football sense, and I think he could help a younger guy. But you got to weigh the cost of having a guy like that on the team, that what the latest one play and he's done for the whole year. And now you put money into this guy and you can't get any type of anything out of him. I have no trust in the Giants' brain trust, and that's from Mara on down. I did see a news blurb that somehow or another the money team, Floyd Mayweather, may be becoming a minority owner with the New York Giants. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe that'll inject some different type of thinking in the upper echelons there, because I feel like, John, you're completely disconnected from what your job is. I feel like, it's been an abject failure just out of the fact that Joe Shane is still fucking employed by the New York Giants. I don't know how that's even fucking possible. If there's one guy that needed to pack his fucking bags and beat the streets, it was Joe Shane. And I have to tell you, I got the Barkley jersey up here as a reminder of how utterly a person has failed their fucking job, And sometimes, you can be working at one place and carry over your experiences. I don't see anything that has happened to us short of what was really, I would say, a lucky punch that we even got into the playoffs the year that we did in 22. with Daniel Jones. And you could really think that Wink Martindale, as our defensive coordinator and putting together an aggressive defense, is what helped to make that fucking happen. But other than that, your next available person that you had on the team, that you got rid of, and then pay this guy all this fucking money, and now we're stuck in this toilet bowl of shit. I don't want to hear about you trying to get a 37-year-old guy that's on his way out of his career. Yes, he benefited from the Sean McKay type of offense. Certainly, we watched Matthew Stafford for years in Detroit, and if he stood there long enough, he's like the Statue of Liberty, you're going to get at him. And the NFC East has too many aggressive type defensive plays, starting with Philly at number one. The the Commanders are getting better. The Giants generally have some type of defense, and Dallas generally has some type of defense. So now you're talking about four teams that all are coming at you, and you get exposed in the training sessions with your own defense, and people start to see what your tendencies are. Does he have a good arm? Yes. Is he a team guy? I think better than Rodgers. Yes. But why are we even having this conversation? Let's start thinking about what it is that we can do with our draft picks and putting together a draft board that can have an impact. And we've seen that in the year that we had Brian Alford up there up front. We had Steve Smith. We had, what was the tight end? And then that's, again, Kevin Boss. We have skilled players that Daboll's is not using. So, I'm stuck between what I would like to see happen and knowing what has happened that's been dog shit. I don't think that we're going to even recover from all this until Daboll's and Shane is gone. And there's a whole different crew of people, which always brings me back to the same place. Louis Riddick, Brian Flores, GM, head coach. Michael Strahan, GM. Steve Spagnuolo, head coach for the New York Giants. The man comes from the Giants. You can imagine Spags? I think the Spags has everything it takes. And what he's missing as far as the offense concerned, boy, I would love to have an Andy Reid type offense on the Giants. Heavy on the tight end, which, if you watch any of these videos, you got to know. And if you watch any football, you got to know the tight end is so an important part. Let's think about the running back position in a more respectful manner. I think our brother, Mr. Barkley, showed us don't sleep on running backs that you can just downgrade their value, Joe Shane. So I just wanted to touch base with my New York family out there and say, get a hold of yourself. Matthew Stafford and putting money into a guy that's 37 years fucking old in the East where he has to run for his life and get away from these aggressive defenses in outdoor stadiums with bad weather is a bad fucking idea. Okay? So just get that shit out of your mind. Is there some people out there that you might go get? Right now, I would have more faith in Colin Kaepernick to do more as a guy who hasn't been beat up for the last 10 years because he hasn't been playing, but was a guy that took a team all the way to the Super Bowl as a quarterback coach type guy to have on the team to get your draft pick ready. I would have more faith in that right now. There's a lot of guys out there that have been around for a long fucking time and they don't do a lot and they are in the number 2 position. I'd be looking for a guy in the Canadian Football League that's a prolific dude that's relatively young and good shape to be that backup quarterback. And of course, my hat's off still to my young man, Tommy DeVito, and let him compete for the number 2 position or be a solid number 3 behind a guy that has some more veteran quarterback experience. But pumping a lot of money into a guy that's at the end of his career is not a good idea. So let's just wake up to the fact that we got to build up from the ground zero. We got a lot of unanswered questions. Is Mike Kafka going to be calling the plays this year? Because Daboll's look like shit calling these plays. Are you going to have a robust defense? Is the Shane Bowen defense going to be a robust defense? Are you going to get someone else for that? Who's going to be the actual pick? Will you have a chance at Cam Ward, which is the guy that I want to see you get? I think that's the guy that's going to give you a chance for some longevity and finally get some wins and be competitive in this division. Is there a chance that if you want to spend some money on somebody, how would it look to have Micah Parsons with the Giants? Micah Parsons has said several times that he wanted to be a Giant, got mad because of the fact the Giants passed him over when they got a chance at him. And right now, he's not a happy camper over there. You might be able to negotiate his numbers down a little bit for the opportunity for him to play like a monster against his former team. So I haven't heard anybody say that, but that sounds more of something that I could go for as far as a moneyed veteran presence. Let's do it on the defensive side of the ball and be able to bring some real pressure. Thibodeau, you got Big Dog Lawrence, you got now Micah Parsons. Woo! I could see that being an issue. Offensively, again, we got to find ourselves some tight ends out there. I heard people talk about T. Higgins, but I recently saw a video. I don't know how true it is, that T. Higgins has a tendency to be poisonous in the locker room. I don't know if that was in jest, this individual that made this thing about him. But, I want to see guys that come in that really want to get into the history of the New York Giants, what we have been traditionally good at. You need to have clock management. You need to keep that offense off the field. You do it by clock management. You need to have a really serious effort to try to reduce penalties as much as possible. You need to have an aggressive, punch you in the face defense and an offense that can hit you with the long ball, but also can just pick you apart piecemeal. That clock management is everything, because sometimes you just, as an opposing team, never get a chance to get back at them when the clock is wearing you down like that. You got a long drive and you end up getting a field goal instead of a touchdown, but now it's a 10-point spread. But then as soon as they get the ball back again, they have another 7-8 minute long drive. And before you know it, your quarter is completely done and you still haven't got anything done. This is New York Giant football, and traditionally that's how we won. We won that way with Bill Parcells. We went that way with Coughlin, and we need to have a real come to Jesus moment in terms of what we're doing. So we're going to be stuck in another. We've been in a pit of nothingness for what, 10 years? With the only thing that we can look at are 2 one-offs of playoff position. One under McAdoo, in which we still had Odell, and lost the game, and that's when they did their infamous trip to Miami before the fucking playoff game. When you should have had your dumb ass still in New York looking at game tape. And then, of course, this 9-7-1 bullshit where now you crown Jones as the second coming of, I don't know, one of the Mannings. This whole David Cutcliffe shit, I don't want to hear no shit about this guy. All right? I want something completely and utterly different that's in par with where this league is going, which means that you need to be able to move in the pocket. You need to be able to improvise. You need to be able to run for your fucking life when you need to effectively. You need to have strength training out the ass. And you also need to have your long range, intermediate, and short passing to be on the dime. They're asking for it all now because that's what you need. You got guys who are incredibly fast, incredibly strong coming after you. You can't have somebody that can't make quick decisions in that pocket. And that's the whole reason for the signal caller. But you also have to have a design plays. And you look at Jalen Hurts does not get the credit. I don't know if you guys have ever done it, but go and watch Jalen Hurts' workout. And then you see why, because of his height and his strength training. This man can haul ass downfield. He's big, he's tall, he's rangy, he's got a great arm, he's got a good football mind. The man is stoic. When you listen to him speak, I watched him on Jimmy Fallon with Saquon when he made the appearance after the Super Bowl win and talking about what his mindset was. The guy sitting on the field holding the trophy, looking at his reflection in the trophy and thinking about all the hard work that it took to get there. You know, this is a game that, you know, there's people that were prolific quarterbacks through the past years, and they never got that win. With my number one guy, a great man, a great quarterback in Jim Kelly. You make 4 appearances in a row to the Super Bowl and don't get the win. All right? Then you got a great quarterback like Dan Marino back in the day. These guys were incredible. Hey, Boomer Esiason. You know, you can say what you want to say about Boomer as a Cincinnati quarterback or a Jets quarterback, but Boomer Esiason had an arm on him, and I think that he had the talent, and he was only inches away with the Cincinnati Bengals of becoming a winning quarterback in the Super Bowl. But it's not a given thing. And of course, now we have the reality of some questionable practices with our Zebra squad. And I'm talking about these clowns that call themselves NFL officials, but maybe they're more employees for Las Vegas or some other entity other than the NFL. Clete Blakeman. Hello? Clete Blakeman? Look that one up. I had a little dive with that, and I see him being brought on to the NBC morning show with Hoda and the other chick, and they're talking about how macho and sexy this guy is and all this other bullshit, and that was like 6 or 7 years ago. And there's always a question with these certain guys that show up during the playoffs and make bad calls. You need to make the least amount of calls during any playoff game, and especially the Super Bowl. You have to let these gentlemen play. And if there's something blatant, you got to call it. And let's get rid of the spot of the foul call for pass interference. It's bullshit, and it tips the scale in favor of whoever has the ball at the time. And we see these games where, like Kansas City, there's no way in my mind, with the way Kansas City played and their record, there's no way in my mind that they should even have been in the Super Bowl if they hadn't got these calls. If they didn't get these calls, they're not in the Super Bowl. And we probably would have been looking at the Buffalo Bills. Or perhaps even a little bit more crazy, but possible, the Texans. But we got to get the part of the NFL, wake up and realize you can't be putting your finger on the fucking scale. You know, the whole point of these billionaires having these teams, or they're buying something they otherwise would never be able to buy. And that's the excellence of the coaching staff and the players on the field to deliver wins in a hard-fought battle. You know, I don't want anybody buying a Super Bowl. You know, but we're getting close to that through the refs and their bullshit. So let's wake up, smell the coffee, and get ready for the new season that's coming up. I'm gonna be with you every step of the way. And hashtag fire Joe Shane, hashtag Brian Dabols wake the fuck up and use the tight end, hashtag let's get Michael Strahan as our new GM or Lewis Riddick as our new GM. I'm gonna finish him every time the same way. And let's go New York Football Giants.